So Ultimate Wolverine is forced to remember some key moments here from his history while he is on another Winter Soldier mission. And the mission that he's on is absolutely insane. But before we get into that, we see the effect that the maker tried to have on a particular important aspect of Wolverine's history. Now, welcome back to Keepin the Comic, and we're diving back into Ultimate Wolverine here with issues number 2 and number 3 here by Chris Condon. Now, back here in issue number 2, we start off here with a flashback. They said 30 years ago at the North American Union, and we hear this guy talking, and he says, "My proposed weapons project has been postponed once again, pending further analysis." And we see Logan here on a photograph in the background, and he continues on. He's like, "Bureaucrats. Still though, our initial findings have yielded results that may be useful, though our first adamantium-infused subject, Weapon Alpha, died within minutes of the procedure." And as we zoom out here, we see more pictures of these individuals that are either past subjects or future subjects, who knows. But then he continues on. He's like, "My small but devoted staff and I have discovered a remarkable number of individuals with abilities beyond our own living amongst us here in secret. Mutants, so-called the rumored Homo Superior, our potential subjects." Now, the guy that's talking here is Truett Hudson, aka the Professor as they call him, and he would be the one here who would have started the Weapon X program. But he continues on by saying, he's like, "Some of these individuals have the ability to heal themselves, others a supernaturally heightened agility. We do not know their full potential, with the pending approval from the Department of," but before he could continue saying anything, we see the maker come in here clapping in a very condescending way, might I add. So the professor's like, "Yo, who's that? Who's there?" And the maker just lets him know. He's like, "Listen, I'm a simple man in search of a better world." And the professor's like, "Bro, there's no such thing as a perfect world." And the maker's like, "I didn't say perfect world. I said a better world, Professor, a better world." And the professor wants to know, he's like, first of all, who are you? How did you even get in here in the first place? And what clearance do you have? And the maker's like, "Clearance? I don't need no stinking clearance." And just guts him right there. Like, he just kills him right there. Now, the reason why the maker did this is because what the maker's hopes was to not create, or I should say, to not have the Weapon X program ever be created. But as we know, as we've seen so far with the current Eurasian Republic, they went ahead and created that anyways. So when we jump back here to present time, what we see here are these soldiers who are currently in the snowy mountains right now, and they're on a hunt for something, but something is hunting them. And there's a moment where one of the soldiers realizes that they are indeed being hunted, and when he looks up and screams, "They're up there," well, homie, it was far too late. Now, these soldiers here, they work for the Eurasian Republic, so why would they be hunting Wolverine in the first place? Well, to gain context of that here, we go over to the Rasputin family, Omega Red, who's currently talking right now to Dr. Elanya Prostovich. Now, Colossus, Omega Red, Magic, they have questions. They're like, "Yo, what if someone else gets into that puppet brain of his? What then?" But Dr. Elanya, she's like, "Listen, that's impossible. Make no mistake, leaders, he is ours." And Magic is not so convinced. She's like, "How can you be so sure? We are not the only ones with telepaths at our disposals. Perhaps the project should be terminated." But Elanya's like, "Terminated? We've sent him on 4 missions already. 4 successful missions, might I add. The opposition is reeling. Leaders, he eliminated several top operatives last month on our western border alone." But for Magic, she's like, "Successful missions, those are a dime a dozen, just like the subjects that you typically tend to create." So Elanya in retort is like, "Listen, I am tasked with certain directives and I accomplished them. I fail to understand why I'm defending myself." Basically, again, is what she says. And then Magic basically mocks her as like, "He has no memories. You say this. You have said this time and time again. But how do you explain what happens when your little Winter Soldier when he goes to sleep? Oh, do you think that we didn't know? Well, perhaps it's time that we check in on your project to see for ourselves how well he is doing." And it's here when the leaders walk over here to where the Winter Soldier, the Ultimate Wolverine, is being contained. And Elanya is trying to let them know, she's like, he's in a normal state right now. He's in his regenerative cycle. He's restoring himself. He's dreaming. She asked the question, she says like, would I prefer for him to be inert? Yes, of course, but this is not an exact science. It takes time, testing, and then one responds and says, lives? And Lana's trying to explain, she's like, he's mostly docile while awake. He obeys, but then Colossus is like, oh, let's cut to the chase, man. And it's like, remove the specimen. I want to inspect it, by the way, myself. Now, Ilania is trying to save that here. She's like, dude is in stasis. But then Colossus is like, yo, I don't want to hear that. Just yokes her up and says, do what I said, basically. So when he comes out of the chamber, Prosevich tries to give Colossus some pointers here. Like, hey, he responds to verbal commands when prefaced with designation. Otherwise, he may react, let's just say, poorly. But Colossus, once again, is like, do not try to tell me how I should be able to interact with my own property. I know how to handle creatures like this. It's not with verbal commands, as he grabs Wolverine and yokes him up into the sky. This is like his thing. This is the second time he's done it now. Prosevich, now Wolverine. Come on, pick a new move, Colossus. And then he continues on. He's like, creatures like this, men like this, they know violence. They respect it. Because unlike you, men like this know there is no such thing as safe. Every second of existence, there is someone or something trying to take from you. And men like this, they know that men like me stand in their way. If you don't crush them, if you don't show them your power, your true power, they will resist. It is inevitable, Doctor. After all, he has done so before. So we will reinforce the lesson, the Winter Soldier's rightful place, as he throws him down and he smashes on the ground. Just like how you should smash that like button, by the way, for the YouTube algorithm. Go ahead, touch it. And Colossus says it is under our heel. So after that demonstration, Colossus is like, okay, I would like to see the Winter Soldier in action. I don't want to see any more reports. We want to see this dude in action. And Magic is like, yeah, I want to see a test. It makes this like sly remark about how Dr. Prosevich should like that because she loves her tests. I'll tell you, man, this place is toxic. So this is what leads here to the Winter Soldier being hunted and then ultimately reverse Uno carding it right here and then hunting them at the same time. He's like, listen, we will send 10 of our finest soldiers to pursue the Winter Soldier in a combat scenario. Fully monitored, only one shall emerge. And it's really not just a test here on the Ultimate Wolverine, it's also as well on Dr. Prosevich as well, because Colossus mentions how it will not be only a test for your subject, but for you too, Doctor. Fail and we shall revise your relationship with the Directorate X. Now the thing about it is that these 10 men that they selected, these finest soldiers that they selected, they have no idea what they're going up against. And after the Winter Soldier takes out one of their men, they're asking the question, they're like, yo, is this the opposition? But one of them says, it's like, no, it's not them, it's him. It's one man, and he didn't look like the opposition. One mentions how they only saw it for a second and it was running like an animal on all fours, like a demon. And then somebody mentions here a theory or a story that they once heard by Babushka. I'm pretty sure I probably said that name wrong. And they mentioned how when they were little, there was a creature that was in the woods, Leshy, the forest spirit. If you disturb the forest, then he would come out. But I'm like, oh, that's not quite exactly who it is, but pretty close. So they're trying to figure out, they're like, yo, what are we dealing with right now? Until one says it's not a monster, it's not a demon or a forest spirit, it's the Winter Soldier. And one of them is like, that's a myth, bro. And then this is where they get confused. They're like, the Winter Soldier, I thought the Winter Soldier was one of our men, a tool of the Eurasia Republic's leadership. And this is when they start to realize, oh, this is for show, because they see the camera up in the trees. And now they know all too well that they are the practice. And it's either him or it's them. And before they know it, here comes the Winter Soldier dropping down, claws through his hands. I was about to say claws in hands, but you get the point. Claws out. Now they try to fire off, braka. But listen, that is way too late. And in this next moment, all we see here is the Winter Soldier with nothing but heads, all wrapped up and being carried along. And he brings it right in front of the camera and it looks and peeks in and says, checkmate. No, he didn't say that part. But he might as well, right? And then this leads us here to our next mission. Now, before we get specifically to that, we see it mentioned here this location about 17 miles outside of Smolensk. And we see this woman here with a nice little furry coat, just sitting in a bench by herself, waiting on something until we see this car with headlights arrive. And when we see who pops out, it's Remy LeBeau with an eye patch on. Now, I couldn't quite make out here who came out of the car with Remy, but he says to this woman here, he's like, hey, you know the time, right? And she's like, yeah, it's the D-Day of B battle, which will make more sense to us as we move along here. And Gambit's like, yeah, ain't it always? So then the woman that's with Gambit says, and who sent you here? So she responds back, she's like, Archangel, I escaped Republic control and was recruited outside Warsaw. I want to fight. So Gambit responds, he's like, not to question his choices, but I need me a driver. Last one got killed in a raid. Don't need more combat boots. So then the woman that's with Remy is like, stop it. We need all the help that we can get. But yeah, can you drive? And then she takes her hood off and says, I can do many things. All right, so I am burying the lead a little bit here. So the woman that's with Remy right now, that's Kitty Pryde. And the woman that you see that just took off the hood, you can tell by the wrist that is Natasha Romanova. And that makes so much sense considering that, you know, it's the Eurasian Republic. It makes so much sense. Well, let's continue moving on here. So then we jump to see this little setting here in an abandoned sewer tunnel network beneath Smalling. So you know that Wolverine, this dude is on that mission. And he's with some men here from the North American Union. And we're going to hear this debriefing that comes in, and it says all of this was the work of 2 North American expatriates who have joined forces with the opposition in resistance of Eurasian supremacy. In a raid last week, we successfully eliminated the opposition vehicle en route to Rasputingrad. However, Remy LeBeau and Catherine Pryde, our targets, survived. Only the driver, Gregor Smerdiakov, was killed, which is another mutant that we know here that goes by the name Tree Man or Brother Gregor. There's a few different names. And this general continues. The man LeBeau was responsible for the Mikhail massacre last spring that took the life of leader Mikhail Rasputin, which I think, by the way, is properly pronounced Mikhail Rasputin. My bad, y'all. But he continues on. He's like, this is but the start of LeBeau's work. Each of these events, and he mentions these are the names, that each claim countless Republic lives and property. This past month, we have also lost a prized possession of the Republic, Natalia Romanova, alias Karnaya Vidova. Man, these names are killing me, y'all. So, and it continues, we believe she may be with the opposition. Reliable intelligence suggests that LeBeau, Pryde, and Romanova are at a nearby opposition base. This is why we've assembled you, the Republic's finest, to go in and destroy their operations. So that explains why they're currently here on this mission. And then one of the men whispers over to the other, he's like, psst, did you get one of these too? And he's like, huh? He's like, yo, adamantium bullets. And he's like, yeah, I did. We all got them, just in case. Now, as they continue to go through this tunnel here, the Wolverine, he sees these purple hues on the wall. And one of the men says, he's like, those are chess pieces lining the tunnel. But the Winter Soldier, he realizes that those aren't regular chess pieces as they start to glow. And then the Winter Soldier, he grabs one of the men and just throws him at the mines. Yo, he is so savage for this. And in a matter of seconds, the thing goes off and just blows him to bits. And I'm not gonna lie to you, look at Ultimate Wolverine right now. This dude's just like looking on like, yeah, I did that. So then next, we see here the 3. We hear Kitty Pryde saying, okay, the truck's loaded, we just need, but before she can even finish that sentence, she hears that loud boom. Now she's trying to figure out like, what in the world was that? But then Remy knows, he's like, the mines, the bad man, he's here. And you can see the terror and shock on at least 2 of their faces. But Remy planned for this. He's like, listen, those mines will slow him down, but we got to get moving like yesterday. So Kitty tells Natasha, she's like, get the truck started. We're leaving right now. Kitty lets Remy know. She's like, listen, you stay up front. You know where to go. And Remy's checking on her like, hey, you're going to be okay? She's like, come on now. I always slip on through. Anybody else feel like this is kind of weird here? Remy and Kitty smooching a little bit? Listen, like, Remy gets around. So what can I say? All right, so let's move on here. He does say to her before she leaves, he's like, hey, you got my blood boiling. And Kitty playing along, she's like, keep it on a simmer for me. All right, let me stop. So when it comes to Natasha now, she can't figure out how to get this thing going. Like the truck, it won't start. Remy's giving out his orders. He's like, listen, go cover that door. Give me the guns. Y'all gotta go. While Remy's trying to look on the monitor, and he's like, yo, what is coming after us right now? And the woman lets him know. She's like, listen, it's nothing good, Remy. It's one man. It's one man. And the look on Remy's face when he's like, yo, he's just got knives. And then it says later on, he's like, this don't feel too good. And here's the thing, that truck still hasn't started up yet. And now we're starting to see the Winter Soldier, he's starting to claw through the door. So Remy's trying to get her to hurry it up. He's like, yo, listen, we got to get the show on the road here. We don't have another day. We don't have another moment to figure this thing out. And they really don't, because the Winter Soldier is like, X marks the spot here on this door. Also, X marks the spot here on the subscribe button. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button here so that you don't miss any more videos from this channel. So the Winter Soldier kicks through the door, knocks everything down, and then everybody's trying to do the best that they possibly can, and he's just getting ping, 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 braka. But that is doing absolutely nothing to the Winter Soldier whatsoever. And to the men that were trying to defend, Winter Soldier just makes quick work of these fools. Now, Remy was able to slow him down just a little bit here by throwing his cards. And when I say just a little, like literally just by like a smidget, but that was enough time to be able to get Remy out of there on that truck. Now, Natasha's kind of breathing a sigh of relief here. She's like, oh, that was so close. And then Remy's like, yo, that was way too close. And then he starts to like remember a little bit. He's like, yo, I knew a guy with claws like that once, but they were bone instead. And he's dead now, but like that dude looks very familiar. Now, what they don't realize here is that the Winter Soldier had gotten on all fours, like a Wolverine. Well, not really, like a wolf. Let's just say like a wolf. So he had gotten on all fours like a wolf, and he was chasing after this truck, and he had caught up. And what he does is that he picks the lock on the back of that truck. And when he gets on the inside, Kitty's like, no. And then she's like, the Rasputins have no right to these children. They are. But then she stops like mid-sentence as he pops his claws. She's like, oh, bleep God, Logan? And then she tries to tell everybody to get down on the ground as the Winter Soldier goes for the kill shot. But of course, Kitty phased it out, and she's trying to get Logan. She's like, Logan, stop. Like, I don't want to do this. Logan, if that's you, I don't know what happened to you. But if it is, why don't you remember me? As she reaches his hands to touch his head. And in that moment, that is when we begin to see the ultimate Wolverine begin to remember. And we see flashes of when he was with the wolves in the mountains. We see the face of Colossus that he stood front and center with. We see a love interest. We see him with his bone claws killing sentinels? So they had sentinels? When did that happen? I would have loved to have seen that. Even his childhood. And he remembers so much more. But when he begins to come to, Kitty, she kicks him out the truck. That was enough to be able to slow the Winter Soldier down. And then she says, till we meet again. But while he lays on the ground, the voice he begins to hear is, Logan, why don't you remember? So as expected, and as some of you already predicted, right, that it would be Kitty Pryde that would kind of force him to remember and kind of come out of this trance a little bit here. But I'm for sure convinced that this is only going to be like a momentary blip because they're going to get him back under control. But this is good to kind of see them progress the story. Great to see Remy. Great to see Kitty Pryde. Great to see Natasha. I mean, come on now. What are your thoughts here on these overall past two issues? Please leave a like on this video here for the YouTube algorithm. Also, hit that subscribe button if you are brand new to the channel so that you don't miss future videos here from us. Check out the links that are down below here in the description, where you can join our Patreon and support the channel in another way. Also, where you can join our Discord and follow us on social media. We appreciate you watching, and as always, thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. Bye!